arm just can't be going the whole time. Like there has to be a certain calmness in that arm action into our separation and into our foot strike. We're just kind of hanging out in a good position for that very short amount of time, but it is time that we have to kind of effectively kill. We're in a good spot to throw the punch.
All right, guys, here we are back in the juice box, another athletic podcast. We haven't been with you guys in a couple weeks, been busy working on some stuff. Me and Greg been working on getting the summer Velocity Max program rocking and rolling. So we're gonna talk about that with you guys a little bit today. We've got a whole bunch of information that we want to give you guys. Obviously, people know about the program. We've been doing it for the past year and a half or so, but just really wanted to talk through some of the concepts and systems that we're putting in with a lot of our players and kind of give you guys a better understanding of what this program is about and just talk pitching in general. So, Greg, you were just talking about one of our remote clients that's asking about what plyo balls to use, what weight plyo balls to use. And, there's all these questions. Do you use bands? Do you use thick bands, skinny bands? Do you guys believe in long toss? And like
plyo
all
balls,
these things.
med balls.
Right. So, Greg, I'm going to let you kind of give your spiel on what some of the main, pieces of Velocity Max is. But generally speaking, guys, we've been running this Velocity Max system that is a 12-week full throwing progression. And it's meant to get guys throwing harder, optimize mechanics, get you guys rid of all those aches and pains and injuries that you got, and then just really get guys feeling better athletically, bigger, stronger, faster, and just operating at a higher capacity. So that's what the general framework of the program is. We run it 3 times a year. We do a summer, a fall, and a winter. There's even talks of us potentially doing a spring program with some of the younger guys, middle school and below, when that season comes back around. But this is a full year developmental plan, and we've had several guys that have done this program 3, even 4 times, and those guys actually get the best benefits out of this program, the guys that do it multiple times. So I'm going to let Greg kind of tell you guys a little bit more about what we do, what we believe in, how we operate it, and then we're going to go down the rabbit hole and give you guys some information. So, Greg, have at it.
So just kind of brief overview of what our kind of our mission is with this velocity program. It is a velocity program. Guys are supposed to gain velocity in this program, but it's not a program that is where we're chasing velocity and sacrificing any some of the other things like command or maybe a lot of instances our health suffers when we start throwing harder. So just really, like, we talk a lot about checking the boxes, and just getting guys to understand from a very foundational level, just playing good catch. Really working on our catch play, and a lot of that comes through the progressions that we're doing. We don't just go right into catch play. A lot of the stuff that when we first get going after we do our a fairly extensive warm up with hitting all the things that we need to hit in terms of mobility, activation, getting the central nervous system going. All that stuff, then it's time to kind of get our arm action on time, and that's kind of the big thing is we want to just make sure that we have a really good sequence with the arm action first, and then we can start sequencing that with the lower half. So it's a lot about the sequence for me is really the big thing that we want guys to understand, and that I think as much as anything else is going to help guys with their off speed too. You
Yeah.
know, just keeping that sequence when you're throwing your off speed and not trying to do any more than that.
Yeah.
Just staying in sequence.
Yeah. You're talking about sequence right now too. And, I've just heard you talking to a lot of our guys, after the past few segments of doing this program, and you get guys that come back a second time and do it, and people's perspective starts to change because everybody thinks that when you change the sequence and to change mechanics, that it's just one simple, easy fix that quote unquote fixes these things, and then all of a sudden you start throwing harder. And I hear you telling guys all the time, like, it's the repetition. It's the repeatability and the consistency in the sequence and in the mechanics at low effort that's going to allow you to be able to turn up the volume, to be able to do this at a higher capacity, to be able to throw harder from the mound.
Mm-hmm.
And like I hear you telling guys this all the time, and you're preaching low effort, low effort, low effort, less is more. So many guys now think that they have to throw 105, and I get it because that's something that people see, right? Guys are throwing really hard now, but there's a way to get there, right? So, like, talk a little bit about the low effort concept, why we like it so much, what it does for guys on a daily basis, what it does for an arm health perspective. Like, talk about some of these things and go into that low effort and sequencing focus that we have.
Yeah. So if you want to work on your sequence, for one thing, you're not gonna be able to make your sequencing better going full tilt, right? Like if you're going 95, 100%, you're not gonna be able to make those adjustments in your sequence. Your odds are you're sort of out of control. You're focused on moving fast, and you're not going to be able to slow it down and get that proper segmentation. Um, which is the segmenting, kind of the sequencing. Um, so, and just in terms of getting the amount of quality reps that we need to get, and building the confidence and to trust the arm, to trust the arm that it's going to be on time, and we don't need to muscle up and kind of and really just kind of force it. It has to be a whippy action with the arm, and that takes a lot of quality reps, low effort to kind of get that neurological connection in the brain that it's like, okay, like I can do this. It is easier than I realized, and that's a lot of times, guys are just more force is not necessarily going to help you throw harder. It's guys. A lot of guys are focused on producing more force, more force, more force. When in reality, that's maybe not really what they need. You see a lot of guys that are strong enough to throw harder, but they're just not efficient. They don't. They need to work on their sequencing. So, and again, just keeping the understanding how to operate at low intent, managing the intensity day to day, and actually being able to keep a low intent day, just that, a low intent day. Not letting it get away from you, and it's maybe low intent for 5 minutes, and then before you know it, you're working on trying to throw your trying to throw your glove side fastball and handcuff your throwing partner.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing. Just getting guys to understand, like working on arm side misses. A lot of arm side is where when we're prepping the sequencing and everything. When we're doing our plyos on the wall, it might a lot of most of the time it's not even a weighted ball. Probably a little over 50% of the time we're probably just using a 5-ounce ball, and we're just trying to really get the motor patterning of the arm action and just create those neuromuscular connections with that timing of a good sequenced arm action to where the scapula is in the right places at the right times.
Mm-hmm. And this is, you're talking plyo balls now, and a lot of people refer to them as weighted balls, right? Because there's different weights and sizes and colors and all these things. Like when we're talking sequencing, guys, like a lot of the work that we do with our plyos, probably, I don't know what the number is, 80% maybe of our plyo work is done at lower intent for sequencing purposes. We will use plyos for velocity building purposes, especially deeper in the program. But for our guys, we want them to understand that a lot of our plyo work is for sequencing. And talk a little bit about the different weighted balls, right? Because we use a lot of 5-ounce. We use a lot of 7-ounce, which is not a lot of overload. But then we will go as heavy as 21-ounce and 32-ounce, and we will up that. And just talk about how, we utilize some of those heavier balls or maybe even the lighter balls, but still focusing on the sequencing and still being able to do that at low intent. What does that look like?
One thing that we're really focused on is, we're on a wall. We're kind of eliminating a lot of the distracting thoughts of, getting the ball to a spot,
having to hit your partner
50 feet, plus feet away. So it's a lot more. It's a lot less pressure, and it can just really help guys to calm down as soon as they pick up the ball. We want to just create that calm to where they're not tensed up. They're not rushing. They're not trying to rush the ball there. They're just trusting the whip. We again, like with the heavier balls, like we like to do some stuff where it's going to be a little more. We're not going to get as stretched out, quite as stretched out. Especially, it's going to help us create feels of staying nice and compact. Those compact feels where if we let our arm get too long, we're gonna feel the loss of our sequence. So we have to kind of stay almost like more like a quarterback, where it's more compact. So the heavier balls are going to help to get that feeling, because if we get outside of our, say outside of 90, then we're really gonna be feeling the loss of efficiency. That's when you start to feel it, in your shoulder. That's like that's how the plyo balls get misapplied. People are just kind of slinging them, and they don't have good sequencing. Their arm is not on time, and it can put a lot of stress on the shoulder and the elbow. So just applying the heavier balls a lot of times in that way. The reverse throws, of course, we're using heavier balls. pivot picks, some of the other separation drills that we do. And then, then you go down to, say you go down from 32 to 21, then we might use the 16 ounce for some more, a little more of our athletic type stuff on the wall. And again, just feeling ourselves in a good sequence, staying under control, and with that 16 ounce ball still being 3 times heavier than a baseball. If you're not on time, you're gonna feel it, and you're not gonna hit your spot. So you're really gonna feel it. You're gonna feel it, and you through your shoulders, through your throwing shoulder, and you're gonna feel the loss of efficiency and the loss of command.
Yeah.
You're not gonna hit your spot. So a lot of times, if we're hitting that spot on the wall, our timing is good, and if we can do that at a lower effort
and feel
it, that's a true indicator that we are in control of the motion, and it's not just kind of wishing the ball to a spot, just
mm-hmm.
just kind of luck.
You're talking a lot about feel too, so I think it's important for guys to understand that this is all feel. I mean, you talked about positions with the scapula. You talked about inside. Now, you mentioned inside 90. That's a term we use, and a term that's thrown around a lot in pitching and in mechanics. So like we see, everybody sees this. It's on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all these mechanical things about showing where somebody's supposed to be at one particular time. And, we could get into arguments about who's right and who's wrong about all this stuff. But I think it's important for you guys to understand, in talking about this sequencing and in talking about feel, low intent, feel, sequencing, feel, we want our guys to remain athletic. We want our guys to self-organize their movements. And a lot of what we do, especially in the sequencing and the sequence series that we have prescribed for guys, is just that, like helping guys feel something without necessarily having to dig in too deep about what's going bad or what's going wrong or how we switch or how we move something in one particular spot. So like, talk about that a little bit, Greg, because I know we hear a lot about where the arm is supposed to be, how the takeaway is, where they're supposed to be at foot strike and all these things. And I think it's important to understand that everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's tempo is a little bit different. So like, talk about that. Talk about some of the stuff you've seen both in the guys that are healthy and then stuff that stuck out from some of our guys that have been injured with some of these things.
Getting guys to understand like the whole, the killing time mechanism with the arm, it's got, and that's something that, I think is misunderstood a lot. Just guys, they just don't have a real understanding of that concept, that like there's gotta be your arm just can't be going the whole time. Like there has to be a certain calmness in that arm action as we go into our separation and into our foot strike, to where we're just kind of hanging out in a good position for that very short amount of time. But it is time that we have to kind of effectively kill, and I use like I just say like hang out, in that in that spot to where we're in a good spot to throw the punch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're in a good position to leverage the throw when we land. Now, if we land and the arm is already really up, well, that's not that's not a good position for your arm and in your upper body to leverage the throw to throw the punch. So it's you can split hairs over it all day. Oh, arms up, arms down, blah blah blah. But the point is, it needs to. It's such fractions. I
Yep.
mean, it needs to just be. It it needs to be like a position to support the throw,
Right.
and like this is not a position when you land to support the throw. Like you've already flipped the arm up, and it's your upper body is clearly already going into the throw before you've landed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of getting to that spot as we catch, as we leverage the ground. This is leverage here. Like I have leverage to throw the punch.
Something where your momentum is going to lead you into a smooth, efficient sequence, right? Like
Right.
we want momentum and sequence almost to ride parallel on train tracks, right? They're not directly correlated. You could have a guy with a great sequence that does not do a great job with momentum. Or you could have a guy that's super athletic and has good tempo and momentum, but maybe doesn't have a great sequence. When you line the two up parallel,
Right.
that's when you get an optimal delivery.
Right.
And I
Right.
think this is important for people to see, because if the momentum and the tempo is different for a player, then that means maybe the sequence might be a little different for that player to go parallel. And if you change one side of the railroad tracks, then you're going to have to change the other to match that parallel we're talking it. You see this with hitters a lot too. Now that we're going to talk hitters now, but hitters do the same thing, right? A guy who maybe takes longer to get moving is going to swing the bat a little bit different than a guy who is short, quick, twitchy. And this is something that we want our pitchers to pay attention to. And in this program, they learn a lot about themselves in the sequencing and in the athletic throwing drills that you mentioned, because they learn how to self-organize, So back up for a second, though, because we skipped over something. We were talking about the sequencing and low effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about this because we have so many guys that come to us and are saying, my elbow hurts, my shoulder hurts, I'm hurt. And a lot of times we know that's not true, right? We've got guys throwing 95 and they have some pain, right? They have some pain receptors going off, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're injured or hurt. What we do know is that there's oftentimes mechanical inefficiencies, sequencing inefficiencies that lead to some of that pain. And I think being able to back up and do some of this stuff at low intent is probably what's enabled us to help a lot of these guys through their pain, and pretty quickly, relatively speaking. But also, I wanted to bring up the point that you said to me the other day, just about like, man, feel like our guys are able to touch the mound so much more often. Not only are they allowed to start or pitch in game once or twice a week, but then they get more times touching the mound throughout the week because you do it at low effort and it doesn't waste all your bullets, right? And you got this balance of volume, frequency, and intensity. So talk a little bit about that and how these things go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, just all the low effort stuff that we do, just getting guys comfortable with operating at low effort. And that's what a lot of times you see the guys that have struggled with, some nagging elbow stuff are kids, who are kind of, they're not weak a lot of times. Like they're strong kids. Like the physical, I'm not a physical therapist, but, the physical therapist looks at the arm, oh, yeah, this arm, you could, you know, knock down a brick wall with this arm. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's just they are so uncomfortable with throwing at low effort. And it's just every time they pick up a baseball, it's like just they got like the death grip on it, and it's just like all this is just so tensed up, and it's just all the velocity a lot of times is really just coming from momentum and this.
Uh-huh.
There's not they're out of sequence, and so just getting them to get comfortable with that on the on the wall and in the catch play, and then it's just doing the same sequence, doing the same motion on the mound, just being able to time it on the slope, which is going to lengthen you out a little bit more. So you got to be able to work in opposites a little bit. You got to be able to stay under control and not get outside of your center of mass and all that, just not getting too long, because I always say, like, the mound is going to lengthen you out naturally. So that's another reason why it's so important to work on staying very efficient and almost, short, which is not really short. It's, to me, it's just efficient with the arm, with the upper body and everything, because when you get on the slope, you're going to get lengthened out a little bit. So it's just kind of creating that calmness with the guys, to where it's kind of changing their frame of mind and how they treat a mound, how they approach practicing off of the mound. It's not just like this, okay, I'm throwing on the mound, like this is my bullpen day, I'm going to throw it just like I do in the game, which is probably too, just probably a little bit out of control and a little too high effort, because they can't control it, and that's kind of just figuring out, like, what's the highest effort level that you can be on time and under control at. And odds are, like, that's about as hard as you're gonna throw anyway,
Right.
even at high effort, because when you start to raise the effort, you lose your sequencing efficiency, and you're not able to control the momentum down the mound. You're not able to leverage it.
Right. Everything else goes out the window. It's like a bell-shaped curve. You get to the top
Right.
somewhere around 85%, probably 80, 85, 90% for some guys. Maybe a few guys are higher than that. You empty the tank, you lose it. You lose the ground. You lose everything. It's like the outfielder who cuts it loose and throws the crap out of it and falls down when he throws. That's the highest effort you can throw. That's 100% effort. And very few outfielders are able to do that and throw it to their intended target. So we're not going to be able to operate that off the mound. I think that's important for guys to understand.
Not at any type of real volume.
Yeah.
Frequency. That's what I really believe. So,
well, if you guys are interested in taking yourself to the next level as a pitcher this summer, maximizing not only your velocity but also your efficiency and you as an athlete in general, we've got a program for you. So make sure you guys click the link below, check out what we've got. We're taking applicants for the summer program right now. We're only allowing 25 in that program. I believe we only have 5 or 6 spots left. So make sure you apply, get set up there. There's also options remotely. You know, Greg does a lot of program for our remote athletes around the country as well if you're not in the Atlanta area. So we'll do more on this. We'll talk more about the Velocity Max program and how the systems work and dive in a little bit deeper for you guys. But appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment below if you have questions. From the Juice Box in Atlanta, Georgia, Athletic Podcast. Catch you guys next time.